But Dabby Dude!
So, good evening, good morning, good welcome, wherever you are. Welcome to another I-Pace driver show.
Something like
Garry, I-Pace driver, I-Pace owner, and
of course me, but Dabby Dude!
what a time. It's been a while since we've actually had a just us two talking and not had guests on the show, actually.
I was thinking that earlier, yeah.
So we've had a fair good degree of stuff going on. I mean, obviously we had Sam on a few weeks back, and as you see behind me, the grid surf stuff starting to roll out everywhere.
Yeah.
And, I just did a trip up to Manchester this week from Peterborough and was able to just not plan it, just stop at the services and charge when I actually needed.
No, you hush your mouth. That's not possible.
It is possible, just. I did actually get to one where there were 3 people queuing for the charger, but I didn't actually need to charge at that one, so that was fine. But I mean, I think that's something they do need to sort out, this software problem they've got on the ABBs.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to be honest, I'm not the greatest fan of ABB chargers. I've seen so many of them fail.
Yeah.
Not as bad as somebody else's chargers, but with the I-Pace,
yeah, there are worse ones out there, but I mean, I have to say the ABBs do seem to be a little problematic. I mean, I wish that, I know it's always nothing's ever good enough, but I kind of wish they rolled tritiums out across the board.
Well, they did it at rugby and they worked really well. Although I have gone to rugby and found 2 of them failed, so that's and it's going to happen. It's really how fast they can write, and they are rolling out and getting stuff quickly fixed. I know they want to get the software sorted out. They are testing it. I mean, one really good thing about the grid server relationship for ABB is I think ABB are being told good and proper what they need to sort out on their software and because we know the grid server guys are EV drivers and they know what they want.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I mean, my one concern is something that you've raised as well before, is that when they enable the 2 vehicle charging per charger, quite a few of those sites, the actual chargers themselves are too close together to get 4 cars. You know, where you've got 2 chargers, there isn't enough physical space to get 4 cars lined up in front of them.
Yeah, indeed.
So squeeze an e-bike or something in there.
You could squeeze an e-bike and charge that. James, my friend James from James and Kate would be very happy with that, with the bikes he's been testing recently.
Yeah, very.
If you haven't seen those videos, go watch them because they're amazing.
Very much so.
So, talking about chargers, we've got some quite exciting charging news actually, which is breaking this week. Actually, under embargo as we speak, but won't be by the time this is released on things. So, Osprey are announcing a £75 million rollout of 150 rapid electric vehicle charging hubs across the UK. Not 150 chargers, 150 charging hubs.
That's huge.
And each hub will hold 12 rapid chargers with a max power of between 150 and 175 kilowatts. And we'll come to why it's a max power in a range in a minute. This will be 1,500 chargers nationwide. The hubs will be conveniently located on A roads and motorways. They will be capable of adding 100 miles of range in as little as 10 minutes. That's the usual thing, but depending on the car, obviously. The first hub is due to open in Wolverhampton next month, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a further 10 hubs under construction this year. Now, I love Osprey. I think they've always been one of my favourite charging networks. I think they're up there with Instapot. And this is brilliant. So the first 4 hubs are already under construction. They're adjacent to well-known popular retailers, including Costa, Lidl, Aldi, Pizza Hut, KFC, and Currys PC World. So they're all in sort of very high throughput locations.
Yeah.
And these will be deploying Kempower chargers. And you've probably seen the Kempower as much as I have. The Kempowers are a brilliant concept because basically they allow you to share a power source. So rather than each box being sort of like a charger with lots of bits inside it, each of the ports is basically just a dumb cable, and then there's a box which is intelligent and shares the power between the various cables. And this means they can basically share a lower spec power grid supply
Yeah.
And you then use the fact that most cars have a charging graph, as we've seen, where it'll tail off. So if you're at the late part of your charge, then that power would be diverted to another car which is on the front. And this means that they don't have to convince the grid that they need to have full peak power for all the charges.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means they can put more charges in with a lower cost of actually installation, which is just a brilliant way of doing it. And I suspect we'll see a lot more people go into Kempower type chargers, and I can't believe that the other manufacturers won't come up with something similar, because it's such a natural thing to do for the way the UK energy market works.
It's also, I mean, to be honest, the thing that leaps out to me about those Kempower chargers as well is obviously all the stuff you've just said, but it eliminates the need to educate drivers so much about their charging capabilities. I mean, for example, you can go to a Fastned hub, and they'll have, I'm going to make some numbers up, but let's say they have one 350 kilowatt charger, 275 kilowatt chargers, and 4 or 5 50 kilowatt chargers. And then you will get couple of people with i3s or Nissan Leafs turning up, plugging into the 350 and the 275 kilowatt chargers, and then somebody turns up in the Taycan and all that's available is a 50 kilowatt charger. And a lot of people still don't understand that your car will only charge at the speed your car can charge at, regardless of the charger you plug it into. So you do still see a lot of people turning up with 50 kilowatt capable cars and plugging them into the fastest charger on the site.
Yeah, indeed.
This completely eliminates that, and that is a huge bonus for me.
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to charge as fast as some cars can charge. But it's still really good. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Do you want to know where these sites are going to be? Because I have the list.
No, I don't care. Yes.
So the first 10 are going to be at Banbury on the M40, in Suffolk somewhere at the A14, on the A14, not quite sure where that will be, Essex on the A127, Glasgow on the M8, East Lothian on the A1. 2 of these hubs in Scotland. I think that's...
Woo! 2 I can reach.
And that's actually quite interesting. I think that's a sign of the times in Scotland. I think with charging, it's actually becoming reasonable for some of these manufacturers to go into Scotland now. Whereas before, with the Charge Base Scotland being mostly free, it wasn't able. Wolverhampton we've already spoken about. Birmingham on the M6, Croydon, London on the A23, which I think is a very important place.
That's a really useful site.
Yeah, Crewe A534 and Brackley on the A43. So all really good sites and places where there's gaps in the charging hubs in there. So I think this is brilliant. I think it's really good to see, and it's great to see hubs appearing. I mean, I was up at what is probably the first. I mean, we know Gridserve have got their electric service stations, their electric forecourt type thing. But I was up with one of the MFG's new installations. So MFG is the motor fuel group. They install petrol pumps. They install petrol stations. They have actually installed a station in near Manchester, which is an EV charging station, and it is like a petrol station. It's got the shop. It's got the air pumps, it's got you to pump your tyre up, you've got jet washers, you've got all the stuff you normally out of a petrol station, but no petrol pumps.
And I believe, am I right in saying those chargers are covered as well?
Yeah, they are. There's a lovely cover over the top. You keep dry, which you need. As I laugh with one of my colleagues on the Digital Lifestyles podcast who lives in Manchester, because you do need to cover in Manchester.
Oh yes.
Although it's never actually rained when I've been there, but yeah, so it's absolutely brilliant, and because it's obviously you've got the proper forecourt there, it's manned. Those chargers are going to work. Now it was very quiet when I was there. I mean, obviously hadn't picked up yet, except for a lot of locals coming in to use the shop. So they can, and he said basically the guy I was talking to this said, yeah, we can actually run without anybody using the chargers. But
see, I mean that's a big plus.
Yeah. So it's a local shop, which is where they make the money. It's got a Greggs in it. It's got all the sort of stuff that people want to come and use for cafe. It's the perfect type of quick charge stop in a very good location. and providing a lot of charges. Now, my only issue from an I-Pace owner point of view is these are Swarco based chargers who supply the MFG group. Evolt as was. I think Evolt have renamed, haven't they? They're now Swarco.
They have. They've rebranded as Swarco.
So they have the typical Swarco supplied chargers with very short leads. I don't know why they do that, but they do. And I know, talking to people at these stations, that they've had complaints from Audi drivers and people that they've not been able to charge. And part of the reason for that is because I would not have been able to charge if I hadn't held the cable in so it connected properly, because they're so short, they're putting a lot of pressure on the cable, which is twisting it and making it not contact properly. And I think that's a lot of the problem. If you can hold it in while you start the charge, which actually is a bit of a contortion because you have to press a button on the screen as well at the same time to get it working. But if you can do that, then it will charge, and it will charge an I-Pace, and it did charge the I-Pace. It charged it very well, and charged it very quickly as well, considering these are not particularly
super
fast
high
chargers.
powered.
Yeah, no, they're not at 400 volts, and they're just under 100 kilowatt.
Right.
But I did get 80 kilowatts consistently, so that's good. So yeah, really good, and the layout was brilliant. I was really impressed. It was what you want to see going forward. And if we get loads of these around, no people in cities and towns won't be so worried about charging. I get the point of having been the person without a home charger. I do get the point. Now I've got a home charger. Of course, I'd never go out and charge deliberately elsewhere. I'd use that, turn it on overnight and charge it. But talking about which, we ought to mention this whole debacle with the government this week with the smart chargers, which is not. I mean, to be fair, if you actually read the government announcement, it's been completely spun by the press. It really has.
It's actually a genius announcement, and it's actually, I can't believe I'm saying this about a government announcement, but it's very well thought out. It
is. It's a brilliant announcement. It is exactly what most people have been asking for. And yet it's been spun by some media people into this thing. And I've heard it from people this week. I've actually heard.
I've heard it.
I won't buy an EV because now they're going to turn all the charges off during the day. I mean, it's been spun as being all the chargers, which is not. It's only home chargers. It's only smart charger, and it's a choice.
Yeah, and I saw Andrew Tills had comments as well on his Mr. EV. He's had comments on his videos with, I'm not buying an EV now because they're going to turn all the charges off. And it's nonsense.
And talking about Andy, his Mr. EV video on this subject is probably the best watched on it. He's covered
it's
so
brilliant.
well,
Covers it perfectly.
And
Maz covered it as well. Epic winning Maz covered it quite well on his Twitter feed as well, if anybody wants to check that out.
But it's generally good news, this for EV drivers. It is exactly what we've been asking for. It means we can have smart chargers which actually work when it's cheap rate electricity.
Exactly.
And if you haven't got a car which supports that, which we all know the I-Pace isn't brilliant at that, then it's a wonderful thing. And it also means that these charger manufacturers should provide this without charge extra fees to having it, which a lot of them try to do at the moment.
Exactly. I mean, just to clarify for everybody what the actual point of the government recommendation is, or the government, whatever you want to call it, mandate is, all it is that when you buy a charger, it will come pre-programmed to not charge your cars between the busiest load times, which I think is something like 8 a.m. till 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But it will come pre-programmed to not charge your car at those times. The first time you use it via an app or whatever means it is to access that charger, you will get a pop-up menu or a pop-up window saying, this has been pre-programmed for this to avoid maximum load on the grid at times of intensive use. Do you wish to leave it as it is or disable it?
Yeah.
And that's it. And then you can either override it and get rid of it or leave it in, which hopefully most people will do. That's it. And I just can't see, other than trying to make a story out of nothing. Which they obviously
were. As you've rightly said this week, a lot of times, if something really annoys you in a headline, it's been done that way to make you click, and just don't pass it on. But that one I couldn't go without commenting on because of the fact it's actually affecting real people I speak to in the street. So, so that's that one. But otherwise, charging news at the moment seems good. I mean, we're getting loads of hubs. Instavolt are doing hubs. Osprey are doing hubs. It's just amazing. If you haven't seen my Instavolt interview I did on my channel and on Digital Lifestyle Show, that is really good.
I watched it the other day and it is excellent. Really good stuff in there as well from Instavolt.
Yeah, and Adrian was talking about a lot of stuff they're doing, their new chargers and things, and and he really does listen. He was taking notes all the time about when I was talking to him after the interview about things. So really, really good, and I think we're going to see some real progress there as well.
I think that's what I like about Instavolt and GridServe. Well, GridServe as well. Throw them in.
Yeah.
But Instavolt and Osprey, I was going to say, is not just that their networks are reasonably priced and reliable, but they both and GridServe are all very open to feedback from the customers, and they respond to it. It's not just lip service. They actually take it on board and react to it where it's
So I just got another response from one of the charging manufacturers just now about something else I've quoted them. So that's quite interesting to see that the feedback coming through very quickly. And I think that what was really interesting, talking to Adrian and talking to other people at Fully Charged, was the fact that all these charging manufacturers are totally aware that the issues around accessibility are out there and they need to sort that out. And they're hampered by the archaic planning regulations around parking spaces. And that's not an EV problem. It's a general car problem. I mean, the reason the cars are wider these days is because we have safety features in them which make them wider.
Exactly.
And the parking, the allowance you have for a parking space, which you can do without going down too many planning regs, is very tiny because it was set in the late 1950s.
Yeah, it's based around the Hillman Imp.
Yeah, which was a large car at this time.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Anyway, shall we come on to the meat of tonight's
the main subject, shall we?
Yeah. Which is not an I-Pace, funnily enough.
Funnily enough, tonight we are departing very much from our format of choice, which obviously, by the name of the show, means that the usual discussion point is I-Pace and I-Pace related topics. Now, we're going quite far off the subject tonight, but I think it's justifiable. I think with good reason, and I think it's of huge relevance to a lot of our viewers. Or we share a lot of viewers, but even the ones that don't watch.
I think one of the key things is that a lot of the people I know who bought their I-Paces early on, their leases are coming up to the end.
Exactly.
So sort of around about February, March, April time next year. Mine is coming up in February. There's a lot of people, and if you want to buy an I-Pace now, you're going to struggle to get one for February or March because on some models, HSE for example, you've got a 12 to 13 month waiting list. Yep. You can't buy an I-Pace with a head-up display at the moment, even if you spec one. They cancel the spec unless you happen to get in early enough to get one of the things.
Yeah, and there was a sort of cut-off where they had enough stock of the parts that they need. And I've had various quotes, but my latest one that I understand is it's down to the lenses for the heads-up display, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, I've heard the same, so I think you're probably right there. So, but I think it's generally components of all sorts of have been insured, not just electronics, but other components have been since because basically during the pandemic, people weren't buying these things, so a lot of these manufacturers spun down, or in fact, some of them went bust. So they're not out there making these things anymore. So it's actually difficult to get hold of some of this stuff. Unless you're an integrated manufacturer who has contacts in other industries and get that down, which is probably what we're coming on to, because basically if you look at some of the Western manufacturers had a lot more problems than some of the newer world companies, shall we say, Chinese and Korean. So let's talk about the meat of the subject. So we've both been looking at other cars, I guess. I'm certainly been looking at other cars because I need to replace my car in February. I have no choice. Yeah. It's going back. I'm
looking purely because I have an interest. It's not necessarily an imminent replacement for me because I own my car outright.
Yeah, so you've got a slightly different choice to make.
Exactly. Yeah.
But obviously, I think we've both been looking at other vehicles for various reasons. I mean, obviously you've got an interest in, but I think it's fair to say that we both feel that the I-Pace has stagnated a bit, and we know that there's stuff coming up. We've both heard of fairly big refreshes coming to the I-Pace, but not for next year, probably for the year after, and with
probably the year after, maybe even the year after that, depending on.
Yeah. And they'll be, from what I'm understanding, pretty fundamental changes to the I-Pace. The shape may stay the same, but I think everything else may change, including all of the underpinnings. I mean, I don't want to go into these rumours because they are very much rumours, but I've heard some pretty strong rumours of maybe relationships with other manufacturers to get underpinnings and things. So a complete change, and maybe not a change for the best. I don't know. I mean, some of the stuff that the I-Pace does really well could be diluted by this. So I mean, there's things I absolutely adore about the I-Pace: the handling, the performance, all those things, but there's things are less endearing. So charging particularly being one of them. Reliability being another, having had another breakdown recently.
Of course, you had an issue recently, didn't you? Which
I mean, I should probably just mention that briefly. I mean, it wasn't an electric car issue. It was to do with the CAN bus. It was to do with the bus system, which is, I'm still amazed we still have cars running on a 1970s networking system, or at least early 80s networking system. But it's still mandated, so everybody has to still do it. But I mean, so all the components can talk to each other using this bus system, which does mean if one component starts failing, it can affect all sorts of other things. And basically what happened with my car was it thought it wanted to go forward and reverse at the same time. And being an EV, it actually tried to do it. I mean, there was a very loud noise when it happened. But and I did get to experience the Jaguar assistance this time. That's proper Jaguar assistance, proper branded. It was obviously AA, but the guy who's properly trained. And those guys are brilliant. I mean, he really knows stuff. And it worries me how much better he is than the dealer.
I know what you mean.
It really worries me because he was able to install all the updates on my car, every single one of them, in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Every time I've taken my car into the dealer to have an update, it's taken at least a day.
Yeah. And they always tell you 3.
Yeah, they always tell you 3 because things go wrong. Well, he said it never goes wrong when he does it, and he basically just runs it off the back of his van. And no need for an e-hook, which when you're working on electric vehicles, you're supposed to do if you're taking apart, because you're not doing anything, you're just doing updates. So that's that excuse out of the window. It's one of the reasons I've heard about the queues for doing updates is we have to use the e-hook to we always have to safety the car before we actually start on these things. And they would, but what was really interesting and worrying was the update was there was a known fault which they could fix with an update in one of the components, but the update's not pushed to all the dealers, and it's not actually generally available. It's only available if you have a problem, which always strikes me as the wrong way of doing things, and it's something I think Jaguar have got to sort out. And this is not an EV, this is generally on Jaguar. They tend to do this all the way around, because I have the impression they just don't trust the dealers. I don't think they trust the dealers to do the updates properly.
I think you're right. I mean, even if you look at the Park Paul update or service bulletin of recent times, was it H288? Oh, the number's escaping me now. H288. You know, that was a failure which would completely disable your car if you suffered it. And again, it was held as something they would apply to your car if you took it in with a problem. And you know, these things used to work when cars had a 6-month service interval. That kind of concept worked quite well. But when you're dealing with a car that's got a 2-year service interval, I think you need to be a little more proactive, to be honest.
You do. Anyway, we went off a tangent there, but
we did. But yes,
an important tangent because it's actually leading into all this stuff. So another thing I think we all know that the Jaguars are still way behind on some of the information system. I think they've improved things. I'm quite happy with my entertainment in my car.
I don't have an issue with it, to be honest. I'm quite happy with it now.
But having played a bit with PV Pro, you've had the experience with it as well. And some of the feedback I get from people who've got PV Pro, it sounds like they've actually stepped backwards with what they've done. And they're just not that good at software. It's not their forte. And I think that other manufacturers do a way better job on that. So hence we've been looking at other vehicles, and we've both seen the same vehicle. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your comments, because I don't know what you think of it at all. So,
I know we haven't discussed. I should explain this to everybody. We haven't actually discussed. I had a little bit of feedback from you of what you thought of it a little while ago, because you saw it before me. But we haven't had an in-depth discussion. So tonight we are winging it. This is just us free-forming on what we both think about the car. So I think without further ado, we really need to start saying what the car is.
So I know, because I've talked to a lot of I-Pace owners who are looking at this car as a possible replacement.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is the Kia EV6, which is also basically the same underpinnings as the Ioniq 5.
Yeah.
And in some ways it depends what your style choice is. Now the EV6 looks a bit like an I-Pace, so I think that's probably why a lot of I-Pace drivers are attracted to it. We've said this before. I think there should be a new class of car called I-Pace clones, because they're just, you've got all this Mustang. It's inspired. In Callum should be really proud of what he inspired with that design.
Absolutely,
it has, and it's a natural shape for this sort of car.
Yeah.
So I think I gave you hints of this car coming, because I'd had some sneak preview stuff come through from Kia PR a while back.
Yeah.
And I remember that conversation we were having on Twitter, and you were saying that, yeah, they could do all that.
Exactly. I mean, I was expecting.
Is that really the spec?
I was expecting a price that was, way beyond what Kia would normally charge for a car. And I guess it kind of is in a way, but I was expecting I-Pace type prices, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not.
No. So I mean, there is a version of it which will be I-Pace prices, but that actually performs better than I-Pace. So
well, see, yeah, again, I would argue with that. Sorry, I'm getting punchy already.
Yeah.
But I would argue with that, because what you're comparing then is the absolute top spec EV6 with the absolute bottom spec I-Pace.
Yeah, indeed.
And the top spec EV6. Really? I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff. That top spec EV6 wipes the floor with the base spec I-Pace. I've said it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the EV6. So there are several models of the EV6, and we'll go a bit more on that. But the EV6 Air is the base model, and that comes with a hell of a lot of equipment.
I know, yeah.
And a 0 to 60 time of 4.5 seconds, which is what you can do in eco on the I-Pace.
Well, the official one is actually 5.2 seconds.
Yeah.
But
4.8
multiple people demonstrated it going about 4.7-ish.
Yeah, 4.7.8, I should say, not 4.5, but 4.7 is what people are doing 0 to 60 in. I think it's 0 to 62 is the quoted one at 5 point.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's similar to what you get when you're in I-Pace and eco mode, basically.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. I'm going to suggest that's going to be very difficult to tell the difference between, especially because of some of the things it does cleverly at low torque and mid torque. And certainly with the gearing between the two drive systems. So the base model that's rear wheel drive. Then you've got the GT line, which is the slightly up spec model, bigger wheels, few more features, and then the GT Line S, which is the sort of the top of the range you can buy currently. And then there's this super GT, which is going to be, I can't remember what the spec is of that. I've just gone blank on the speed, but it's quick.
It's 3.3 seconds, I think it is, not to 60. Or no, actually not to 62.
Yeah, 0 to 62. So that's really quick, and also lots of handling tweaks and stuff on it.
577 brake horsepower, I think it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. And again, that's at a similar price to an I-Pace S.
58.
Yeah, 58. So
an I-Pace S is about 65 at the moment.
Yeah, although there are some discounts you can have and stuff. There's some deals to be had on that.
You could probably get an I-Pace S with a bit of hard bargaining. You could probably get it for about the same price as GT.
Although I have to say, at the moment, you could get a better contract deal on the I-Pace than you can on.
Very possibly, yeah.
Because EV6 is unknown to the contract market. They don't know what its residuals are going to be like.
Yeah.
So they're always a bit. Early adopters always get punished on the contract market.
Indeed, yeah.
But yeah, but that's a crazy car. I mean, the only reason I'm not looking at it is I don't like the green stitching. But
well, interestingly, I spoke to them about that because I'm not a huge fan either. And they said what they told me was initially, if you buy the GT, that's the interior.
Yeah.
You have the green stitching. But what they did point out to me is it's not actually as bad as it looks in the publicity photos, because in those publicity photos, they've set all the ambient lighting to match the green piping on the seats. So it makes it look like there's a lot more green than there is. But what she said is after about a couple of months on the market, they then say, oh, you can have it with black seats if you want.
Yeah, you can have. So they don't tend to have a lot of options when they do initial launches on Kias. And I've noticed this on some of the Nero as well. But then they tend to bring things in at a slightly higher price usually. Actually, they tend to have a price shift at the same time as well. So it's a trade off. If you want to get the cost benefits, you sometimes go earlier. But it's really weird. I think
having looked at the GT, the sort of stuff they showed me earlier, I do think the interior is not going to be as bad as it initially seems when you look at a lot of the publicity photos.
Yeah, I get that as well. It's just I don't like green, so I mean it's a very personal thing, but that's it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think spec wise, I would be quite happy to live with the GT Line S. I think the all-wheel drive version of that. So I was going for the specs. So you've got rear-wheel drive, and then you've all-wheel drive as well, which obviously reduces the range, but actually makes it faster. Yeah, slightly.
There's not much in it though.
There's not. No, there's not much in it. Range.
Sorry, I just that was one they came up with today. Was the GT? The all-wheel drive is 312 miles. And the two-wheel drive is 324 miles.
Yeah, not a lot of difference.
No,
and those aren't real-world figures. I mean, I've been told people are getting around at 280, 290 on the test drives and because these cars are actually out in Korea, so you can actually see it. But that's perfectly reasonable enough.
That's way more than reasonable. That's perfect.
But the other thing which is interesting with the GT Line S is you can also add the heat pump if you want to as well as an option, which may not be appropriate for my temperatures, although I'm probably going to get one anyway if I do go for it. But in Scotland, I would think that'd be quite useful.
I would certainly spec it. Again, it's arguable how useful it is, even in Scotland. I mean, certainly my part of Scotland, we don't see those extreme temperatures like of Norway or places like that. But I would probably still spec it just because that's me.
So I don't know if you discussed the drive modes with them when I'm speaking to them. So all the WLTP figures will be in normal because that's the default it runs in. So if you switch to Eco, you're going to get a lot more mileage because one of the clever things it does, it has a clutch system to disengage the front wheel drive. So when you're in Eco, you're only running in rear wheel drive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is going to be quite. That's something I've always wished the I-Pace would be able to do.
Which is very clever because they're permanent magnet motors.
Yeah.
Which normally you can't do that with, but because they've installed this clutch-based system, they can just completely disengage it.
Now, normally I'd be slightly worried about clutch-based system because it's adding complexity.
I know.
But then you are talking about a Kia here, which has got a 7-year warranty.
You're talking about Kia, but also you're talking about something that's not going to be used very much.
No, it won't be, yeah.
You know, as opposed to like a clutch and a manual gearbox car.
Yeah.
You know, where you use it every time you change gear and every time you pull away. This is going to be something that's only going to be engaged or disengaged when you change modes. And let's be honest, most people don't really bother with eco mode.
So I mean that's really clever. It's again, it's something I wish we had on the I-Pace because it would have definitely have helped with the economy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I know there's been quite a few Ioniq 5 reviews out recently of the people driving them. We talked about Mr. EV, and he's got his Ioniq 5 and loves it. Although, if you want a hilarious moment, just watch the reaction of his wife.
You have to watch that video. Trust me, everybody. If you have not watched the video where he introduces his wife to the Ioniq 5, please watch it.
It's hilarious. But the Ioniq 5 is a very, very style of car. but it's basically the same underpinnings.
Yeah.
And there's economy of scale there. Obviously, the GMP platform. I won't call it eGimp like
eGimp,
like Johnny from the Like-Base show did. But the eGMP platform is, I think that's an amazing innovation. I've said this before, even before I saw the EV6 was coming out. The fact it's 800 volt charging, but it still can dynamically switch to 400 volt charging,
and it does that so cleverly. The way it does it is superbly implemented.
And what does that mean? Well, it means if you can find a fast charger like an Ionity charger, you can charge at very rapid rates. I mean, you're talking full in less than 40 minutes, and that means you've got another 300 miles of range. So you can drive on a British road basically for 4 hours, charge and have another 4 hours driving.
Exactly. 10 to 80 is 18 minutes according. 10% to 80%. I mean, you know, and that's a real world figure. That's the kind of number that we need people to be publishing, is 10 to 80.
And that's and it is a real world figure because people have tested it and actually got slightly faster than that, which is amazing. And now I can hear all the I-Pace saying, but Ionities are so expensive, and they are. But obviously, Big Kia are part of the Ionity network, so you can get a discounted rate. And if you're one of the early adopters and you put your order in early, you get a year's. I think it's a year's free Ionity. And then
I thought it was 2 years actually.
It's 2 years. 2 years.
I think it's 2 years for the early adopters and 1 year.
That's right. You're right. 2 years for early, 1 year for the other. And that's a free subscription. It doesn't actually mean you get free charging. You just get a very reduced rate. I think it's 20 a kilowatt hour.
It's 20 something. 25-ish pence, give or take.
Which is great. I mean, that's a really good incentive for that.
Absolutely,
So you get that. So really fast charging works really well. But the one thing I mean, everybody I've spoken to about it says, but it's not going to be an I-Pace. It's not, the build quality is not going to be there. What did you think?
Well, I'll be honest, when I was going, let me tell you what I was expecting first. When I went to see the car, I was genuinely expecting to go there, get in and think, well, there's a lot of cheap materials in here. It's not very premium. I wasn't expecting it to be rubbish. I wasn't expecting like a Tata or something, but I was expecting it to be a little bit sort of below, I was expecting to see quite a significant difference in quality of materials and general feel, sort of stuff you can't see in a video, but when you sit in a car, you just feel the quality of the controls and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, I'm going to get in it and I'm going to think, it's not bad. It's obviously not an I-Pace, but it's not bad. What I actually got into and thought was, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
There were a few areas where you could see sort of lower grade materials, if you like, particularly the back of the seats. I thought when you were sitting in the back seat, the rear portion of the driver's seat and the front passenger seat was quite a nasty hard plastic. And the kind of lower panels, the kick panels, if you like, on the doors, again, were sort of lower grade plastic. But all the bits that you touch were really good. The one thing I thought was an odd choice, and it was just an odd choice, it wasn't that it felt cheap, was that they put that black gloss piano black stuff on the door handles where you open and close the door.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird.
Now
we have to say that this car is a prototype. It's still not got. It's not actually. It's a bit of a bastardized spec as well. It doesn't actually meet any of these specs we talked about.
Exactly.
And I'm told some of the materials may change for the better. That was the comment I got from the Kia PR that was going to change. Some of them change for the better. So I mean, we will have to see what the actual launch model.
Indeed. But when I got into it, everything felt nice. So I mean, there was a couple of things where I thought, but it was minor stuff. But I loved the sort of brushed aluminium on the center console, just behind the gear shift knob. That looked really nice, I thought.
And the amazing thing is, a lot of this is recycled material. But
Yeah.
It's very eco car in that respect. There's not.
Yeah.
Sorry, so
I really like the dashboard as well. You know, that kind of it's almost like a ribbed material with the sort of vertical stripes on it, the irregularly spaced vertical stripes. And I thought that looked much nicer in person than it did in pictures. I actually thought that looked really quite premium. The screens are lovely. The screens are really nice. And I like the steering wheel. Proper buttons, none of your touch sensitive nonsense.
Yeah, one of the negative comments I've heard about it quite a bit is the steering wheel shape, but I actually quite liked it.
I actually didn't mind it. I'm not normally a two-spoke steering wheel fan, but I think it worked.
It works in terms of the relationship to the dashboard. Now I've seen the i5 as well, and that's got actually the same information system, infotainment system, but it's the layout is different. It's very flat, whereas the EV6 has got a nice curve shape to it, and it does look premium to me. And it looks very premium.
Completely agree.
I mean, I think this is the best competitor to the I-Pace I've seen, and I'm finding it very hard to justify £30,000 difference in cost.
That's where I was going to go with it later. Yeah, I'm completely with you. I went there expecting to, as I say, I was expecting to say, oh, it's lovely. It's not an I-Pace, but it is cheaper. But I came away from there thinking, what does the I-Pace offer that doesn't? And I couldn't think of very much. Now, I don't think they do over-the-air updates, do they? I could be wrong on that.
They do. So they don't currently do over-the-air updates for any components. They do for the infotainment system, which is something that you actually want to change anyway.
To be honest.
So that's a restriction, but they are apparently pretty good at getting people in for software updates on although not so much in the UK. Europe is better than the UK, so I'm told that. But that's something that may change. So that's one thing. I think handling may be another aspect. Obviously, you can't get air suspension on it, so that's one area where.
Well, the GT is air suspension.
Yes, so on the GT line you can't, but on the GT you get. But it's not quite the same type of air suspension as the I-Pace has got. It's certainly not meant to be an off-roader in any sense.
Oh no,
you haven't got that. You haven't got the ground clearance the I-Pace has got. So there's some bits and pieces there which are.
Yeah.
One other comment I've heard about is people saying that it hasn't got the same luggage space as the I-Pace, which is interesting because I actually measured it when I tested it, and it's actually deeper than the I-Pace. It's just shallower. So yes, maybe actually the total cubic capacity of it is lower, but actually maybe the usable space is possibly more. So it's one of those trade-offs.
Exactly. I mean, certainly the boot was zero concern for me. I know, depends on how much stuff you have to carry on a regular basis. Like big families and things like that, it may be more critical, but certainly it was not. It could not be described as a small boot.
No, and it has got a very small front. I
was about to go there as well.
If you go for the all-wheel drive, you just lose so much. I mean, it's like a tray, really. You could just. It
really is. I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a laptop. Literally a laptop.
Yeah, you could just about. We did test it, and you can get the cable in there.
You can, yeah. You can squeeze. It's kind of an L-shaped space, and that you've got a flat bit, and then it kind of drops off into a little bit about that wide and that deep. So you can squeeze a cable in there. So you could probably get a charging cable and a laptop, a small laptop.
But it is a cab forward design, so it's very much like the I-Pace. You're using all that space under there for your feet, basically. So you're.
If you buy the rear wheel drive, you get a 50-litre fruit.
Yeah, which is quite reasonable. That's it's. I mean, I wouldn't buy just the rear wheel drive. I mean, I think, but I don't think it's actually unlike a lot of cars. I don't think that actually just having the rear wheel drive is a bad thing on this one. I think the all wheel drive, the difference between rear wheel drive and all wheel drive is actually fairly low on this one. It's just I have a preference for all wheel drive. So I think the handling is one thing. We haven't got the torque steering. We haven't got some of the stuff. I'd be interested. They say they've set it up for good handling. I've certainly heard some reports of understeer on it on some of the test drives. So I want to get my hands on one and actually drive it to see.
Same. Yeah, same. I mean that's we should make that proviso quite clear that we're basing this purely on the physical, tactile aspects of the car, if you like. We both of us will drive it very soon. But neither of us have as yet.
Yeah. I mean, I have spoken to people who have driven them. So I've got personal friends who've been someone that managed to get some of the review cars and actually had to drive them. And the general feedback has been incredibly positive. Including someone I know who actually owns an I-Pace and has now had no intention of changing his I-Pace. He's now on the EV6, having done one of the test drives. So I think that says a lot, I think.
I mean, my only issue with it really is it's not possible to spec exactly what I want.
No, and I think that's what you were saying about Kia anyway. The launch stuff always is inflexible with them, and it's packaged, and that you get what you get. And one of the things which really annoyed me was that in Europe there isn't a GT Line S. It's on the GT Line, so we're paying extra for some of these bits which are standard in the top range one.
I hadn't realised that actually, but
So, but then again, we are getting the bigger battery, which they don't necessarily get for free. So there are two in the rest of the world. There are two battery specs. In the UK, we're only getting it's a 77. I haven't got the facts. Probably I should have done, but
70. The big one is 77.4 kilowatt.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's quite complicated as well. They don't say usable. They've got this weird thing where they say it's not the maximum, but it's not the usable amount either. But it's the realistic. Honestly, I couldn't quite work it out.
I mean, they do the same with the inner. They don't quote the actual battery size. So, but basically, if in terms of working out how long it's going to take to charge, I think it's 70 kilowatts was what I was told. So
exactly, yeah. And then the smaller one, I think, is 55 point something,
which is not available in the UK. So don't have to worry about that. But 77 is brilliant. I mean, and one thing I was thinking about this goes further than my I-Pace. It charges faster, and it'll cost less to charge.
Yes,
because it's a smaller capacity battery to do that length of journey.
Exactly. It's a win-win, and it will cost less to charge on Ionity because you
get the things. So there's a lot of positives, but obviously it's very contingent on driving it. I'm not. But there's so many things on there I just was blown away with. I mean, so the informationtainment system, it's snappy. I mean, even on this prototype, it works. I don't know if you plugged your phone in, but I actually got Android Auto.
I didn't do that.
Android Auto working, which works. It's got wireless charging. It hasn't got wireless Android Auto or wireless CarPlay yet.
It has got wireless CarPlay.
Well, that's new since the last time I spoke to them. Then, so they were saying that that they were going to do a software update to do that at some point.
Right, they've got wireless CarPlay, but not wireless Android Auto yet. But that will come as well. Obviously.
The hardware's there. It was just a software change, and they have it on some of their other vehicles with smaller display screens, but not on these bigger display screens. And there's some reason for that. But it's snappy. It does things. The cameras are just brilliant. I mean, none of those 360 gaps in your 360. You don't need a rear sense camera because you just get the view around it is just amazing. Although it does miss trees apparently, so
that's always a plus then.
But it's close up stuff you can see. But it also it's just the operation of it. I mean, dedicated button for the cameras. You don't have to go through 10 screens to get to the cameras.
Exactly.
Sort of stuff. I mean, I know the heating controls are a little bit dubious because they're touch. But they have twisting knobs anyway, so they've still got the twisting knobs to actually work on it. Some of the seating stuff controls were a little bit strange, but basically it's all there. You've got loads of USB sockets. You've got all
they're everywhere.
You'd want in it. So generally everything I could really desire in terms of technology in a car, in a way which is not like a Tesla where it's just thrown in your face. It's actually it looks like a good package. It looks like a cockpit. It feels
it's a driver's car. It feels like a driver's car.
So some of the graphics I'm not so keen on. I know you can change some of that. but it has got all the information you want. It's got range. It's got the battery percentage. It tells you all stuff. It's got one button press to say charge to 80%. It's got things like that. Yeah, the technology is just all there. I'm told the navigation system's really good. I haven't tried it, but then you've got. I mean, we talked about the I-Pace. You can't buy a head-up display now. Yeah, EV6, all the EV6, except for the base model, get this amazing augmented reality HUD system, which gives you the directions on the road as to where you're going to turn. And I've seen that on the Ioniq, and it works brilliantly.
Yeah. We actually saw a demonstration of it. Obviously, the car wasn't moving, but they had it running in a sort of demo mode. But again, look, so I'm just calling up the specs here. Actually, yeah, you only get that in the GT Line S and the GT. Yeah. The augmented reality heads up.
So not in the GT. Yeah, so that's one of the things that you get in the European spec on the GT line, but you don't get in the UK, which is really.
But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely fabulous. It's got so much stuff on there, but it's not overly intrusive. It doesn't, it's not bamboozling or baffling. You get your big blue arrows on the road telling you turn down this slip road, and it overlays it over the actual road, so you know which road you're turning onto. But it also shows things like it highlights the back of the car in front of you with a light, a little sort of glow underneath the car almost, to let you know that it's spotted it and it's tracking that for the adaptive cruise control. All that kind of stuff.
It's amazing. And things like the blind spot models, just some cameras flash up on the screens, you put the indicators on. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've just gone over the hour mark on the show, so I think we probably need to really wind up.
But we do need to wind up. I could talk for another hour on this car.
Yeah, well, I think we'll come back to it. I mean, we're obviously going to both drive it and see what we think. And we'll see how we go. I mean, I still love my I-Pace. I didn't think I'd find a car to change it from, but maybe this is the one. I don't know. We'll see.
Could well be. I mean, certainly whenever my next changes come in, and obviously I'm not on a fixed timeline like yourself, but it would certainly at the moment I think it would be probably a GT Line S. I would love the GT performance and the GT suspension, but you lose the electrically powered seats and vented seats as well. You don't get cooled seats in the GT.
Yeah.
So, and you don't get the side airbags either. So the ones in the sides of the seat don't exist on the GT either. So it's a little bit increased safety and a few more comfort features in the GT Line S. The trade-off is a bit of performance.
But only a little bit. Well, quite a bit, but only a little bit compared to the I-Pace.
Exactly, yeah. I don't think, I'm like you, I don't think you would distinguish a difference. If you got into it and floored it, I don't think you would say, that feels about 0.2 seconds slower than an I-Pace.
Yeah. Anyway, great to talk to you, Alice.
And
this has been I think it's a very different show. Hopefully our listeners, and I know a lot of people trying to make this decision at the moment, so it's a very interesting thing. We'll see how it goes. We'll see where we go.
Indeed.
I mean, there's a few other cars I want to look at as well, and I may still stick with the I-Pace, but we will see. Anyway, for now,
I really want to see the new Mercedes as well, the EQS and the EQE.
The EQE as well. Anyway, for now, we'll call that a night, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Indeed. Thanks for watching.
Okay.
Abba Dabby Dude.